I'm working on the channel that sits right next to where the purfling will go on the instrument. I use a very small, narrow chisel because the grain is very tricky to work in this spot. It keeps changing directions, so it requires a smaller, more narrow chisel. My name is Rich Maxim. I make violins, I repair them and restore them. And I do work on violin, viola, and cello bows as well. And I have a workshop in Alexandria, Virginia. I grew up with the violin. I began playing the violin at 3 years old and studied with my father and would play with him the violin. It's been in my family for 5 generations now, since the late 1800s. The first violin that I'm aware of that my great-great-grandfather made was made in 1895. In addition to working on my own instruments and my customer instruments at my own workshop, I work part-time at the Violin House of Weaver, where I work on old and new instruments and take them apart and make improvements where they're needed. What I love about working on the instruments is getting to know the instruments and becoming familiar with their characters. Each instrument has its own character, just like a person does, and it has its own story. Some of that I can learn just by studying the instrument. Some I learn by talking to the owners of the instruments and learning the histories, but there's an awful lot that I can learn as a luthier just by admiring the workmanship and learning from the details that are left by the maker.
This is an old French fiddle made in 1860 by Pelot, and I got a French certificate for it, but I don't know how it sounds yet. I feel confident and comfortable giving him a very expensive instrument because he's very careful on how he approaches everything about it. He's meticulous, and he gets a great result. I think working on great violins here has exposed him to way things have always been done, and I think he's applying that to everything he does. So there's a very big possibility that he will be one of the great luthiers of this country and this world, I guess, in the future. He's so young, but he's so talented now.
I hope that by working on instruments of all kinds for all types of players, I can provide something to the violin world that will live on beyond me. And I also hope that in doing that work, I can preserve and extend the tradition that comes from my ancestors that I love and admire, and pass that on to future generations.